welcome to this remote episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Mathews, the Be Ready Utah manager here at the Utah Division of Emergency Management. And joining me again today are the full Be Ready Utah section with Bryan Stinson, Ken Kraudy, James Ray, Maralin Hoff, and Jeff Johnson. Yes, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. And we're going to talk about COVID-19. What have we learned? We've all been going through a very difficult time, a worldwide pandemic that has changed our lives in many ways. And so let's just kind of jump, raise a hand or whatever if you've got something you want to say, but we'll just kind of start it off by saying, first of all, how are you coping? How are you coping with life at home? You're stuck at home, stay at home directive. We shouldn't be going out, shouldn't be going to the store, going to church, school, work, visiting family even. We're staying home. How are you all coping, briefly? Bryan.
Well, I'm going to say that is probably the part that I think has been the hardest. I mean, we're all preparedness kind of people, so it wasn't so much of having my Campbell's soup cans and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it has been the emotional part of it. I mean, I like to think of myself as mostly a balanced kind of mental person, but it's been hard. I mean, between me who's still working full time from home, my wife working full time from home, and trying to do our children's homework with them at the same time, beyond just homework, all of their school curriculum as well. So trying to get all of that in, plus just trying to have some family time when we're not working so intently at trying to get it all finished. It's been hard. It's been hard to cope with getting everything done and yet still loving each other as a family.
Yeah, aside from the health aspect, which has been very scary, it's been a very emotional, mental coping issue with the protective action orders and directives. Anyone else?
I just want to say just at the end of that, the way that we've coped, or at least the days that work the best for us is when we've got a schedule. When we all go to bed at a certain time, so we all wake up at a certain time. We've just started doing a bicycle ride in the morning, then breakfast, and then I get my work done as much as I can in the morning. I take a break, so my wife does work, then we do homework. And when we're done with homework, then we finish our other work, and then we have the evening for fun time. It's setting a routine and sticking to that schedule that has helped us to get through it.
Exactly. Ken, you had a hand up.
Yeah, I just often say that we're at the mercy of the technology of the day, but during this pandemic situation, I'm just grateful for the technology that we have. Being able to sit in front of my computer and my laptop and being able to communicate with all of you, it's therapeutic just to be able to have that interaction. But being able to get on WebEOC and be a part of the missions and the tasks that are associated with what we do, being able to communicate and hear the governor's reports and so forth on television or on Facebook. The technology, is something that hasn't always been in the world, but it is now, and we're grateful for it.
It has certainly changed the way we do things, with the example right here for Be Ready Utah PrepCast, but we've all learned a little bit more about technology and communicating through new technology. Absolutely. Jeff, go ahead. Yeah, and you're muted. So there you go.
Yeah, I had some background noise, so I'm muted. One of the things I've learned is we're at the mercy of the technology too. We have Comcast cable and internet, and they've been working in the neighborhood. And so all of a sudden my internet's been going down because there's been a problem with it. And I'm grateful for the technology. It's been really cool. But I also found out we're at the mercy of it too. If it has a glitch or it fails or we can't access it, it has been a lesson learned for us that we've had a crash.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the protective actions to begin with. This is something we've talked about in Be Ready Utah for a long time is, a pandemic, what's the protective action? I used to call it social isolation. Well, I've learned a little bit more about the protective action specifically for pandemic too, that they kind of go in a scale. beginning with the social distancing, which is a whole new thing for all of us. How many of you, or which of you has some thoughts about what your social distancing, the masks in public, how's that been? Uncomfortable? Yeah, Maralin has got an example right there. Be Ready Utah mask, awesome. Going to the store and wearing masks, trying to stay 6 feet away from people. What are your thoughts about this, the social distancing and the protective actions, which have been working in Utah? We want to add that certainly has been working in Utah. So what are your thoughts on the protective actions? Anyone? Maralin, go ahead.
Yes, wow, what a change. The whole world looks the same, wearing masks and gloves. Some are colored, some are white. We all look like we work in hospitals. And so, what a big change that is. And standing 6 feet away from everybody. And sometimes we seem to do that at home. And it doesn't feel good. It does not feel good. And so I made a list of pros and cons. I have so much to say, but I can't say it in 3 minutes. So not only the COVID-19, we had to cancel our Utah Expo. I don't know the date, but that was a big let down. We worked so hard to put this together, you, Wade, and Ken, and everybody putting this together. So we had to cancel that. Plus, I had to cancel all my presentations, and I hate to say no to my customers. So that's disappointing. And then, so a lot of pros came from this. We also experienced our 5.7 earthquake, and which that's what we all trained and practiced for, preparedness. And so it came true for us. And then on my cons, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't have all that much time, but it's hard to not see my children, grandchildren. I missed birthdays. I have Cher concert tickets that was canceled and till October. And then the good thing about the COVID-19, no makeup. The bad thing, no manicure, no pedicure. You see, I have no nails. That is devastating to me. And then I've been, I gained 8 pounds, and plus, and wait, what is it? And last but not least, I've been craving pizza.
Maralin, that sounds rough, but you're doing really good for all those cons and all those difficulties you've been going through. It looks like you're doing good. The important thing I could add right at the beginning is we're all healthy. Everyone is healthy, and that's a blessing, something that we're all grateful for, and we're all looking forward to the time when we'll be able to go back to work again in the office and interact and associate with one another again. So it's good to see everybody's healthy and looking forward to that. Yeah, speaking of work, how has it felt? We are emergency management, and in the middle of all this, and we've all been playing different parts. What are your thoughts about kind of your role in this whole statewide and worldwide, really, but our efforts are statewide, a role in the statewide response to COVID-19? James, you've been doing a lot at the RSS. Why don't you talk about, and you're muted right now too, why don't you talk about a little bit what your thoughts are about about the response and stuff?
What's been impressive to me, not only for us within the Division of Emergency Management, but for society at large, is how amazing people are to pivot in their responsibilities in various things. My day job would be focusing on private sector preparedness and the Be Ready business program. And in response to this whole COVID-19 response, now I'm doing logistics with trying to get all of the personal protective equipment for our healthcare facilities and our professional responders. And the cool thing is that despite a disaster, we've been able to adjust, and be able to fill new roles and to do new things, that aren't necessarily in our normal life, day-to-day kind of behavior. And I think most people in society have kind of felt that, in one degree or another. But it goes out to say a big hurrah, for society at large, for being creative and adjusting quite well to the situations at hand.
Absolutely. Well said. Adapt and overcome. Really, that's what you're talking about. And that's what we've all been doing at this point, adapt and overcome. And we hear reference many times now of the new normal, and I hate that. I really don't like that term, the new normal. But it indicates change. And I'm afraid, yes, we're going to see a lot of permanent change around the world in our lives because of this pandemic. But it goes back to adapting and overcoming, and doing what it takes to come out successful ahead. Bryan, you had a hand up.
Yeah, just going along with what James was saying, I think that some of that change has been, I know, good for me in the sense of I'm learning new technology. I mean, I do our social media, and so all of the social media that I've been putting out, well, most of it is through the prism now of social distancing and coronavirus. But I mean, this is a good example here, just what we're doing with our remote PrepCast. We've been doing them all there in the
safety of our own homes.
Well, I mean, but previous to this, we were doing it in the conference room there at the DEM,
yeah.
the Division of Emergency Management. This opens up a whole new world to us. I mean, we can be interviewing people on the other side of the planet if we wanted to. I mean, and then that's for professionally, but then I think also privately, having this technology has helped with family activities. We're visiting with grandma and grandpa and playing games with them. We're figuring out how to do it remotely. So just being able to go from this is the way we've always done it, now being forced through this coronavirus social distancing to open up a whole new world of possibilities that we wouldn't have done otherwise. I think
exactly.
That's a cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that applies to what are we doing with Be Ready Utah? I've done a presentation through Zoom or Google, whatever, of webinar, which aren't, webinars aren't new, but it's something new to the way we've been doing business at Be Ready Utah, and trying to continue providing the education, information for preparedness that we've been doing all along. Okay, let's just kind of wrap this up with one final question. And we have a PrepCast coming up where we talk about, what would we do with this survival tool? I want to kind of ask everybody, what's your one lesson learned? What are we taking away from this that we can apply to our lives that will improve or help us prepare for the next time or whatever? So again, we'll just raise your hand. Okay, we're going to start with Ken, and just as you have your thought ready, go ahead and raise your hand. Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, keep a people first mentality. During times like this, during a pandemic, remember that at the end of the day, it's the people that matter the most. Not only your family, but your neighbors, the people you work with, and even strangers. Quick story. Have a sister living in California. She and her husband went to the store to purchase some groceries. They bought 2 dozen eggs. They got to the checkout stand, and the gal at the checkout stand said you could only buy 1 dozen eggs. So they set it aside. And they went out to their car with the dozen eggs and the other groceries. And then the person who was behind them in the line came running out to the parking lot with the other dozen eggs that they had purchased for my sister.
Wow.
What a great story. A stranger.
Absolutely.
But, this is a terrible situation, but it brings out the best in people as well. So my thought, keep a people first mentality.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. And it kind of reminds me of what we saw early on, which I think was just a result of a little bit of fear and panic with the run on the stores of toilet paper and bottled water. But I think people have come to their senses a little bit, and we're going to see, hear a lot of stories like that, hopefully, that come out of this. Very good. Who else has a idea to share, best practice or takeaway from this? James, go ahead.
Yeah. Just here's one thing in regards to the Be Ready Business Program. With the governor's economic task force and all of the discussions with the state's business partners and everything, The topics that we have been talking about with Be Ready Business, the 14 points of business continuity planning, directly align. It's been amazing to see how the messaging that we've been sharing is the accurate message, and that businesses that build business continuity plans really do so much better than those who do not. And it's been interesting to hear the conversations of all of those business leaders and the chambers and the university professors who are economists and understand all of those things, how important each of those various points are for business resilience. Beyond that, it's been interesting to see that, how people behave, right? The run on the stores, the stockpiling behavior kind of shows to a large degree how unprepared people are. But it's also interesting to see how, on an education standpoint, how our children are actually learning and actually acting in the right way. With the earthquake that happened, there was a 30-year-old example that panicked and got into a doorway where there was a swinging door, right? Kind of a slightly dangerous situation. But an 11-year-old took his siblings and got underneath the kitchen table. And then after the shaking was done, went up and checked on his mother and baby sister. And it's really interesting to see how even our children are learning those points, and how to behave appropriately when disaster strikes. So good things are happening, and it's good as we continue to learn and improve on what we understand.
Yeah, and I absolutely thank you. And I like what you shared about the businesses too. They have definitely been greatly impacted. A lot of businesses through this pandemic, and hopefully they all come out okay. There will be those that probably aren't going to open their doors again, unfortunately, but hopefully the majority of them, as you say, through continuity operations planning and all those types of things, will come out okay through all of this. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Maralin is calling on Jeff. Jeff, do you have a thought? You're muted. Okay, there you go.
I do. I have a lot of thoughts, not enough time for all of them, but I will say one thing. We have been given a really good opportunity to test our preparedness. And my wife will sit at the table and look at me and she says, we don't need to go to the store. We just haven't had the need to go to the store. Outside of milk and bread, and with them releasing the limits of only having 2 gallons of milk on, we'll stock up 10 gallons of milk in the fridge. And my wife will look at me and say, I don't need to go to the store. And that's been kind of a comforting thing. We've worked hard on our preparedness, and honestly, we have been able to stay home. The other comment I have is when you have all 3 of you home kind of working, when I say 3 of us, my wife's teaching school from home. And I could go into a whole lot of things of how this has impacted schools just from seeing what's happened with my wife. We don't have time for that today, but realize schools are greatly impacted by this. And my son being home doing homework because he's in high school and every one of his teachers are giving him homework. We've had to find a way to all of us work simultaneously from home without interfering with each other, because my wife's doing a lot of online videos. And as you guys know, we're doing a lot of Zoom and GoToMeeting meetings. And so that's been an interesting aspect, is finding a way for everybody to have a spot in the house to work.
Yeah, exactly. It's changing the way we do things.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Bryan.
Well, one thing, pretty much echoing what everybody else has said, my wife and I were discussing this earlier, and she said that even the best preparations have holes. And we think of ourselves as being, like I said earlier, a prepared family, but we found a few holes in our preparations, just simple things that we wouldn't have thought about, like daily vitamins. Oh, our supply of daily vitamins are a little lower than we thought. Just little things like that. So it's important, I think, to practice our preparedness plans and think about what do I need on a daily basis, and make sure I have a means of either having that stored or another means of getting that, and not thinking like right now, what do I need today, but what might I need in next week or next month or in 3 months, and be thinking, getting in the mindset of future thinking, I think, is a very important thing. And then the last thing I wanted to say, going along with what Ken was saying, is make sure that when we make our preparations, have enough to share. Make sure that you have enough to take care of your family, but then also make sure that you have enough that you can share. Because even if you know somebody else that maybe was prepared, depending on the emergency, maybe their house and their supplies are now inaccessible. So have enough that you can share. That was my final point.
Okay, thank you, Bryan. Excellent. And yeah, I agree. I think all of us, as Jeff was saying too, is probably found this a little bit easier because we have practiced and done our preparedness, and so same with us. We haven't had to go to the store. We've had our food storage and so on. But yeah, so thank you for those thoughts, Bryan and Jeff. Maralin, go ahead.
And plus, we saved money by not going out, going shopping, and saved gasoline. So that's the good part about this whole thing. And I did share with a family member that needed a mask and gloves. And so you're right, Bryan, have enough where you can share with others.
Exactly. Well, I think that's really about all the time that we have right now. Thank you all for your thoughts, for your experiences, your stories. We need to do something to try and capture these things a little bit more. I think some of you have been writing these ideas down. Yep. And so that we can apply these to the future. Thank you all for your efforts in Be Ready Utah to help the public learn with your presentations and your booths that you set up and your materials you prepare and provide, and the outreach on our website and social media. You guys are a great team. Appreciate all that you do. Thank you to the public. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for what you're doing. We know that you're making great sacrifices, and we wish everybody the best as we continue to move towards recovery from this, in the orange phase right now. A couple more to go to get to green. We look forward to that, but we wish everyone the best at this time with your health, with your families, with your businesses, and hopefully we can see you soon at a Be Ready Utah event. That's it for us. Again, these are all available on our Be Ready Utah YouTube channel and our social media accounts. Please give us your comments and questions, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Like what you're seeing? Have a question about anything related to emergency preparedness? Or do you have a comment about something you've learned as you make a plan or get a kit? We'd love to hear from you. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRUPrepCast, or in the comments on YouTube. We'll talk about it on one of the next episodes of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Don't forget to share these videos and your own adventures in preparedness with your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers, because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. See you next time.